Do you want to know what your mayor and council members are texting each other? Just ask. I'm Charles Blaine, and this is Texas Tomorrow. The Texas Public Information Act is state law that governs public information. It turned 50 last year. Government officials, elected, appointed, employed, they work for you, and the information that they have access to is information that you should have access to. And in most instances, you do. You can request body-worn camera footage from the police. You can request emails between elected officials, expenses from staff, incident reports, travel reports, really almost anything that you can think of. But they don't always have to be responsive, and usually they're not. Now, state law says they're supposed to be. Either they release the information, or they tell you that they don't have it and there's no responsive information, or they file a request for an opinion from the Attorney General's office to delay the release of that information. And in most instances, local governments will opt for those two latter options. I submitted a request to the city of Houston nearly 3 years ago. They told me they were going to release it. I paid the required amount to get the information, and then they just stopped answering my requests. Emails after emails went ignored, and so finally I decided to submit an complaint to the Attorney General's office because the city of Houston was ignoring my open records request. Unfortunately, that didn't really go anywhere either, and as of today, I'm still out of my open records and I'm still out of my money. But this is what the local governments do. They make it hard by charging exorbitant amounts, like the city of Huntsville did, by passing an ordinance forcing requesters to pay the full cost of salaries and copy costs if they use more than 15 hours of employees' time a month or 36 hours in 1 year. Others, like the city of Houston, for instance, like in my example I just used, choose not to respond at all, or they contest the release. And since there's no repercussions for them not releasing the information, and the state often sides in their favor when it comes to releasing the information, they have no incentive to actually release the information that the public demands. But one city surprisingly made the law a little bit better for their residents. So entities are allowed to charge up to 25% of photocopying fees for documents that you request. And up until a few weeks ago, the city of Corpus Christi was charging between 20 and 25% for requesters to get copies of those documents. Well, they brought an ordinance before city council to do away with the charges at all. And so now requesters don't have to pay those charges, and requesting information from public records is easier and more affordable in the city of Corpus Christi. Now, while I said that getting the information is difficult and you may never actually get it, that doesn't mean you shouldn't try. Filling these requests is incredibly easy. You simply send an email to the entity or person that you want, you list out the required information that you want, and you send it in. Now, there are certain parameters, such as they don't have to go and recreate information or documents. It has to exist already. But if it's there and they can make a copy of it, they're supposed to give it to you. Now, of course, there are other things like social security numbers and driver's license numbers and addresses that should be withheld and are withheld. But in most instances, the information that people are asking for is rather innocuous. But even so, local governments will still find a way and a reason to contest the release of that information. They started to use this as a delay tactic rather than just give people the information they're asking for. They know they can drag out the clock by requesting opinions, by using weekends and holidays to delay the amount of days that they have to release the information. And they just hope that citizens will forget about it and move on. And in a lot of instances, they do. And that's what they're counting on you to do. And that's why you shouldn't do that. You should stay on top of it. Not only is it an easy task, even if you aren't successful in getting the information, but if you are successful, you can get a lot of information about your local government that they otherwise wouldn't put up front. It's information that people should know, but too often elected officials and appointed officials just keep it secret. And even if you don't get information, you're putting your elected officials on notice that you're paying attention. And often that's important enough. Just knowing that citizens are watching is often enough to make them do the right thing. The opening of the government code that oversees the Texas Public Information Act says the people in delegating authority do not give their public servants the right to decide what is good for the people to know and what is not good for them to know. Well, unfortunately, too many local governments across the state of Texas skipped reading that part, and they just assume that they know best what people should know. And we need to start pushing back and letting them know that that's not the case.